in a little tent, oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there have been times when I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Utica. I'm Carol Gable, member of the board for UU Utica. Whether you are visiting for the first time or have been a member for many years, you are welcome here. Whatever faith you have known, if any, you are welcome here. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. We are invited to bring our whole selves to this worship service, our doubts as well as our convictions, the pain and joy we have known, our longings for connection and understanding. Every part of you is welcome here. I'm so happy to welcome our guest speaker, Reverend Jill Farnham-Us. Many of you know Reverend Jill, as she has spoken at UU Utica before and is an active leader in the community, especially in the call for social justice. If you attended any protests during the Trump presidency or Black Lives Matter vigils, you probably saw Jill. She's a member of the Metropolitan Community Church clergy, lives in Herkimer with her wife, and currently serves as a leader in the Interfaith Coalition of Utica and Indivisible Mohawk Valley. If you are signing in today for the first time, we are glad you have joined us. We would love to learn more about you and connect you with our newsletter. There is a link in the chat to a form that we hope any visitors would fill out, and we hope you will stay for informal conversation in breakout groups after the service. We do have a few announcements today. Clinton's Fire Department is hosting their annual classic car show in Clinton at the school, and Sally Carmen, a longtime member of our congregation, worked to get several electric cars included, along with lots of information about electric cars. Several of, I think, our members of our church are actually there now because it started at 10, but it goes till 2:30 if anybody wants to drop in and say hello and learn about electric cars. Information on this was in the newsletter this week, as well as an announcement about a film screening and discussion tonight of The Age of Consequence, hosted by the UU Church of Canton. They invited anybody from UU Utica to join. The Zoom link and other information is in the newsletter. One other thing in the newsletter is information about Juneteenth celebrations in both Utica and Rome next Saturday. Juneteenth is also called Emancipation Day, as it marks the day of June 19th, 1865, when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and make sure all enslaved people in the South were to be free. The Emancipation Proclamation declaring this had been signed by Abraham Lincoln 2.5 years earlier, and Robert Lee had surrendered for the Confederacy 2 months before Juneteenth. Lastly, we will be joining UU Barneveld next Sunday morning for the annual pilgrimage service there. They have an excellent guest speaker, the Reverend Kate Braystrup. She is a UU minister, chaplain to the Maine Warden Service, and author of several books and essays. My favorite of hers is Here If You Need Me, in which she describes her remarkable journey from grief to happiness as she helps her family cope with the sudden loss of her husband and comes to serve as chaplain for Maine search and rescue workers and the people that they assist. That service begins at 11. Let us now open our hearts and minds to the experience of community and the wisdom of love.
Our call to worship today is by Ted Loder. Empower me to be a bold participant rather than a timid saint in waiting in the difficult ordinariness of now, to exercise the authority of honesty rather than to defer to power or deceive to get it, to influence someone for justice rather than impress anyone for gain, and by grace to find treasures of joy, friendship, of peace hidden in the fields of the daily you give me to plant. And now we'll have our next hymn. It's hymn 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
The chalice lighting. These are words by Carl G. Seberg, and I will now try to light this candle I have here, which you cannot see, but I can. Let there be joy in our coming together this morning. Let there be truth heard in the words we speak and the songs we sing. Let there be help and healing for our disharmony and our despair. Let there be silence for the voice within us and beyond us. Let there be joy in our coming together.
If you see something that's wrong, raise your hand and say that's wrong. Point it out and name that thing by its name. Don't stand by and stare. If it's wrong, it's your affair. Don't be quiet, make a riot, be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. Ignore the crowd and go against the grain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. When Rosa Parks sat on that bus, she chose to make a fuss. She chose to break the rules and take the blame. Her choice to sit and fight helped to bring on civil rights, because one strong woman chose to be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. If they say you have to move, say I'll remain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Harvey Milk chose to run for the council board and won, even though folks said you can't because you're gay. One brave LGBTQ elected leader ran and knew you can change things if you choose to be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. Tell 'em I won't let you make me feel ashamed. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Tennis star named Billie Jean told the world she had a dream that men and women would be paid the same. She refused to hit that ball till there was equal pay for all. She was a king because she was a royal pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. If they refuse to pay, refuse to play the game. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Kids from Parkland led the fight for something they all knew was right. They said it's time for us to finally make a change. If adults can't compromise, we must go march for our lives. They spoke out and led the charge. They all were pains. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. When you're faced with laws you know are just insane. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Oh, be a pain, shout about it and complain. Ignore the crowd and go against the grain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain.
Awesome. Our reading is by Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure about you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Okay, mute, unmute, mute, unmute. Good morning. I am glad to see you all here. As I've commented before, we all look much smaller on the screen, but I am looking forward to a time when we can all see each other in person and get to see the ways in which we have grown, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. In this time of social distancing, many of us have found new insights and new directions for our lives. This year, I have been focused in two directions. I've spent a lot of time working to elect progressive Democratic leaders. I also took a hard look at my own personal thoughts and beliefs and behaviors. I've come to realize that I've spent most of my 75 years as a human doing, active and caring, but rarely for myself, active and working, but comparing myself to an idealized worker. I decided about a year ago that staying home and waiting for change was not the best use of my time. So I started practicing Noom and found that mindful eating has led me to mindful living. And mindful living for me has really meant thinking about the things that I had worked my way through. I learned to listen to people on TV and on Zoom Talk. And as they talked about their fears and how unprecedented this epidemic was, I wondered if they had any sense of history. So I spent time reading and listening to books that helped me see a world beyond my personal experience. I'm sure if you saw the brief bio or heard what Carol said about me, you know that the important things in my life have often started with something awful. In 1982, after I divorced, I moved away from Vermont and my children to live in Arlington, Virginia, and begin a new life as an open lesbian. This was right after 1982 was 4 years after Harvey Milk was killed and 4 years after Holly Near wrote that song, We Are Gentle, Angry People Singing for Our Lives. And at that point, I was learning the risks and joys of finding myself and the grief of losing the connections with my young children. And then in 1985, I found Metropolitan Community Church. That hot August day, this quiet Episcopal woman from Vermont found herself marching down the streets of Washington, D.C., singing Marching to Zion and other evangelical hymns we never sang in the Episcopal Church. And that night, we went to Metropolitan Community Church of Northern Virginia, and I watched two women co-leading the worship service. Felt like I'd found a new kind of presence and a new vision of the divine. This is 1985. And at the urgent care center where I was working, we became aware of this new disease of gay men. We called it GRID, gay-related infectious disease, or something. We weren't sure what it was. There were pride parades, women's music festivals, the Whitman Walker AIDS clinic, people dying, people afraid. It was joy and light, and fear and grief. By 1987, the Names Project Quilt had documented thousands of deaths, and almost 2,000 quilts were displayed in Washington, D.C. on October 11th, during what they called the National March for lesbian and gay rights. That day was transformative for me. The march, the prayers, MCC had a prayer service that sort of led off that march. The protests and the hours of seeing only LGBT people on the mall and in the subway. And the parade took over 5 hours to finish. Shortly after that, as I was trying to figure out how I was going to earn my living, I went to an Amway conference in Norfolk, Virginia, and the Sunday morning evangelical preacher, whose name I either can't or won't recall, made an altar call for the 8,000 people in attendance, the Come to Jesus call. My partner and I walked around the outside of that stadium with me in tears. And I knew then that I needed to give up the work of making money and begin the process of ministry. But it wouldn't be hidden. So in 1988, I went to Long Beach, California to attend the Metropolitan Community Church Orientation to Pastoring. This was just before I started seminary at Wesley. And I met my wife there. She was from San Antonio, Texas. I was living in Arlington, Virginia. But we'd both experienced the devastation of HIV, and we were very aware of the ways that society had ignored or demonized same-gender relationships. And that had been the change that occurred during the AIDS epidemic. Same-gender relationships began to take on more importance when we got past our initial resistance. Men had initially resisted the whole idea of gay marriage just because they just wanted to be with as many people as they could. And lesbians had dismissed it as a remnant of the patriarchy, very self-righteous. But when we saw the isolation, the inability to visit a longtime partner in the hospital, or that families, parents took away a partner and didn't allow their lover to see them again, we began an incentive, there began to be an incentive to make marriage possible. So it's in the mid-'80s. While I was attending Wesley Theological Seminary as an open lesbian, Kara and I had our Holy Union, and we were married at the Holy Union. It was at the UU Church in Northern Virginia, where MCC Nova had also worshiped. Several people from the Methodist Seminary that I was attending also came to that wedding. Now you can see me again. It took over 30 years, from 1985 to 2015, before equal marriage was possible in the entire country. A pandemic that is still being ignored by most of the world, marches that changed my understanding of the past and future, and then we got to persistence, because it is persistence that makes change happen. Sadly, it's not our telling people what to do, and they'll immediately start doing it. In Washington, it took until 1996 for a president to even acknowledge the impact of the quilt. And it had been there since 1987. 9 years of persistence, of demonstrating, of praying, of caring, of voting, and getting up to do it all again. In 1996, that was the year we also started to have treatments for HIV that, in fact, began to save lives. Persistence. There's another whole sermon in there I'm not going to go into, so we'll skip to the next part. In July 1992, after I'd graduated from seminary and we were looking around for a place to do ministry, Kara and I moved to the New York Capital Region to begin pastoring MCC of the Hudson Valley. I was working for the Eddy Visiting Nurse Association as a receptionist. In September of that year, Kara's mother died in Auburn, New York. So I took the 4-day bereavement leave that the employee handbook said was available for the death of an in-law. I learned years later that the discussion about that went all the way to the top of the Board of Health of the Eddie V&A health care system about whether a same-sex couple could claim that benefit. And the Eddie V&A was just part of the whole Eddie system, which runs 3 hospitals and 4 nursing homes and the V&A in 4 counties. So that was a benefit that I didn't ask about. I was just a pain. I just did it. And it made a change, whether I knew it or not. Our ministry was focused on the LGBT community and on making the community safe for people who had been threatened by religion forever. So in 1995, when Mike Losinger came to the Eddie to start the AIDS care team program, I jumped on that opportunity. We formed over 40 teams of about 250 volunteers from faith-based organizations, churches, synagogues, temples, everywhere from Baha'i to mosques, temples, to provide non-medical social support for people living with HIV and AIDS. We saved lives and changed the environment in the capital region. People had been afraid of the disease and were afraid of the people they thought would give them that disease. And churches had been a strong factor in that fear. The presence of care team volunteers in so many congregations changed the church. Pastors told me when I went and asked them if I could start a team in their program, said that no one cared about HIV in their congregation until the team was formed. And then the congregants came forward and told the pastor that their son, their nephew, their friend was living with AIDS, and they thought no one cared. That fear, that invisibility, that hiddenness became very visible to the world 5 years ago yesterday, when a 29-year-old man in Orlando, Florida, killed 49 people and injured 58 at the Pulse nightclub. Kara and I were scheduled to go visit my son the following week. So we were in Orlando and went to MCC as they held their first memorial service to begin the healing process in that community. That was an amazing, amazing service. People still weren't calling that a hate crime against gay and lesbian people. They were calling it a terrorism shooting. And it was really both. But in that atmosphere of grief and loss and fear and abandonment, the community at MCC came together with love and embraced survivors and those who, many of whom, the church was packed, hadn't been to a church maybe ever, but came for that service. MCC was founded in 1968 in October, just about 9 months before Stonewall. We call it the gestation of the Stonewall Pride. It's been a very long time. It's hard to be persistent in the urgency of what is really necessary change. It's really hard as we attempt to try to deal with the current pandemic, prevent future pandemics, as we march and vote and protest and vaccinate, as we watch people of color being attacked and killed, as we fight for Black Lives Matter. We can feel overwhelmed with urgency. That's why I live where I live. And I'm sitting here looking out my window at the house, the farm, the place I call Sabbath Rest. Because I knew that if I was going to be active, if I was going to do hospice work, if I was going to do AIDS work, if I was going to do activism work, I needed a place of rest. So here in 2021, in this urgency, we need to understand that it's important for us to take time to fill ourselves so we can continue. We're feeling the urgency of the assaults on our democracy. We're feeling threatened by the isolation of social distancing and masks and people not wanting to get vaccinated and we really want to get together. And I hear people tell me that they've never been this afraid for our democracy, and that they just want things to get back to normal. As I said at the beginning, this year of reflection has led me to look in new directions. Our democracy is feeling the impact of millions of people who had rarely or never voted before 2020. So I'm not afraid of the people in DC or in the state capitals who are encroaching on our democracy. I am more concerned that the people who voted in 2020 will become complacent, as sadly we did in 2016, or they'll become discouraged and not continue to vote in coming elections. Because persistence is the lesson that this year of reflection has taught me. And persistence can only happen when we are strengthened internally, when we become mindful instead of frightened. Because fear is always the enemy. And compassion is always the path forward. Whether it was the quilt or the gay weddings, the holy unions that we did, or the healing services after too many deaths, compassion is the beginning of healing. Compassion can be visible from the top. President Clinton walking in the quilt in 1996, or President Biden leading the vaccination program in the United States. But real compassion and real healing happens when neighbors and congregants reach out to each other. We cannot wait for the leaders to bring the changes we need in these 2020s. We are the people who can, who must bring the light of change to the world around us. So we will join in singing hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, oh, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, let it shine. Building up a building that world, let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. This little
We will now have our offering. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough.
Extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
Our benediction today is words by Judy Chicago. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind. And then both men and women will be gentle, and then both women and men will be strong. And then no person will be subject to another's will. And then all will be rich and free and varied. And then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many, and then all will share equally in the earth's abundance. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will cherish life's creatures, and then everywhere will be called Eden once again.
We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing till the world can hear the song, till the world can sing along. We will not stop marching. We will not stop marching. We will not stop marching till the world can hear the song, till the world can sing along. Till the world can sing, till the world can sing, till the world can sing along. Till the